Welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast.
We have allowed ourselves to become so disconnected and ignorant about something that is as intimate as the food that we eat.
Be prepared to grow your own for victory.
God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-foamed pullets who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. I'm your host, Harold Thornborough, and glad you're back with me again this week. And today we're going to talk about the fun topic of coccidiosis. Yeah, well, maybe not such a fun topic, but it's an absolutely necessary topic. I feel like it's something homesteaders need to know about, and maybe you've never heard of it. And today you're going to learn a lot about it. But maybe if you've been a homesteader for a while, you've probably come across it. I mean, there's a really good chance you've been stricken by it before and you've dealt with it. It's an ugly little thing that homesteaders have to deal with if you're gonna raise livestock sometimes. So we're going to talk about that today. That actually stemmed from a couple episodes ago. We had the Q&A episode, and it was one of the questions in the Q&A episode, from Anne Marie, and, she was battling it, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to it. But I wanted to just take a whole episode and talk about that. And it's not an easy topic to talk about because, I like to encourage folks to homestead, and it's kind of a discouraging thing to talk about. It really is. But you know what? It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I've got my coffee. I'm geared up. I'm ready to talk about this because I just feel like it's something you need to know about if you're going to get into raising livestock on your homestead. So before we jump into that, though, let's talk about a few homestead updates. See, I intended to come out with this episode a couple weeks ago, so I put some things in here that are out of whack. But I was making wine racks and some wall shelves out of pallets for Christmas presents for my family, and man, those things came out awesome. And I just encourage folks for birthdays, Christmas, holidays, things like that. If you're going to give gifts to people, man, homemade gifts are a way to go. And I think that people appreciate them better. I know I like getting stuff like that. I really do. I like getting stuff like that way better than some cheap store-bought item. And they really enjoyed them, and I thought they came out really, really nice. So, something I was working on there for, the week before Christmas, and that was kind of fun to do. I'll tell you something we're dealing with right now on the homestead that ain't a lot of fun, that you don't think a lot about, and that's rodents. We've had kind of a slight rodent infestation this year, and we've always had a mouse here and there you had to take care of or whatever, but I don't know if it's been the last couple winters were real mild winters or what's going on, but wow, have we really been dealing with them this year? I have implemented every method that I know of to try to control these things, and it seems like looks like I'll have them gone, and then we'll see a few more, and it's like, wow, they're just, you can't get rid of them. And I'm in an urban homestead, which is, for 20 years, we really didn't have any problem with them. And then you bring on animals onto your homestead and kind of turn your backyard into a little food forest. And guess what? They're going to find a home on your place, and you got to deal with them. And it's something we've had to deal with lately a lot. It's been, I've had to work towards it. And I did something I didn't think I would ever do, and that's resort to poison in a couple locations, like in my garage. I mean, I've got it very secured up in a corner in one of those lock boxes that you screw together. So, I mean, there's no way a kid or an animal could get in there other than a mouse. But I tell you, I didn't think I'd ever do that, but it's gotten so bad to where I've actually done it. And I don't even recommend that. I mean, if you can control them any other way, do it. But wow, I just felt like it's something I had to do. And I've already seen the difference in bringing in the mouse poison for to control them. And like I said, I didn't want to do that. That was like a last resort for me, but I was like, okay, I can't take this anymore. We're going to have to get rid of some of these things. So that's something that, something you have to do sometimes. You have to do things you didn't think you'd have to do. And that's the reality of homesteading. And I don't care. You can get into this with all the, all the morals and all the thoughts you'll have. It's like, to me, it's like somebody who has a baby, a brand new baby, and they say, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. Well, my baby's not going to have a pacifier. Well, or something like that. And after about 3 days of screaming, they'll do just about anything to pacify that child or do whatever, You give in. I mean, you just give in to something sometimes. And those are bad things to do, but sometimes people, you give in. And I think poisons, for pest control not the best way to go for sure. But, sometimes you just have to do what you got to do. And I won't keep it out there. If we get it under control, I'll remove it, be very safe with it. But right now, it's out there. What else we got going on around here? I bartered some rabbits, some breeding stock rabbits for some other meat. That was kind of neat. I mean, you don't think about it. You think about selling some animals or whatever, but, guys like, hey, I can give you some pork and some, this and that. And we ended up with quite a bit of stuff. We got a whole ham. We got a bunch of pork chops and bacon and, trading for some rabbits, a couple rabbits for some breeding stock, because he wants to get into raising rabbits. So that was a good trade. And I'd encourage folks to go down that alley if you can, look for opportunities to trade rather than just sell. I actually came out way better than I would have if I had sold them, I think. So that worked out real well. Oh yeah. Something else happened around here. I might have killed one of my apple trees. Man, my favorite apple tree too. The one where I planted it where I really, really wanted one. I don't know. It looks like it might recover at this point because this happened a few weeks ago, but I told you I was building the wine racks out of pallets, right? Well, I got this really big pallet from work. It was like a 12-foot long pallet and real wide. And that's what I was going to make all the wine racks out of. And I did. And, it was, I had it leaning up against the railing on my deck for a couple days. And, real heavy pallet. I mean, we're talking like over 100-pound pallet. It was really big, heavy wood. And, we had some really super strong winds come through. And where this apple tree is, it's like, I actually have an upper and lower deck. And the lower deck, I have like a square cut out in the corner and it's framed in. And the apple tree actually grows up through that part of the deck. And, but it's at ground level. So it's not like up high off the ground or anything. And some real super strong gusts of wind came through, and I didn't even think about a pallet that heavy. And I had it leaning pretty good up against the railing on the deck, and it flipped over and hit that apple tree, and it laid that apple tree down. And it didn't break it and it didn't uproot it, but it just like bent it over and, but really hard all the way to the ground. And I pulled on it and straightened it back out and tied it back. And, it's got a little bit of a lean. I mean, I couldn't get all of it out, but I don't know. And it made a pretty good scar on the trunk. So I don't know if it's something it's about. I mean, it's a pretty good sized tree. It's probably a 3 to 4 inch, trunk on it, So, I mean, it surprised me that the pallet laid it over. That's how heavy that pallet was. But, hopefully that tree recovers because, oh man, I love the location of that tree and I really like the height of it. It's already about a 10-foot tall tree. So, I mean, it's got some size on it already. So I didn't want to lose it. And just in a kind of an announcement too. I think this next year, the podcast is going to kind of trump the blog. There for the longest time, I was publishing like 3 times a week. I was publishing a podcast and a couple blog posts a week and sometimes 4. 3 blog posts a week. And, what I've discovered is I don't have the time for all that. And, I really want to press forward with my podcast. I got the podcast now, and I'm also, February 1st, we're launching our membership site, and we'll be talking more about that, especially probably on the next couple episodes. But I really want to put more time and effort into getting out regular podcasts, making better podcasts. And, the blog, while I do get a lot of traffic from that, the podcast has really turned out to be the thing where most of my audience is. I think I'll just blog only when there's really something I just have to write about. I feel like there's something I just have to put down in print, and I'll do that. I mean, the podcast kind of serves as a blog too, because there's always in-depth show notes with every episode. So that's kind of a blog post also. It has all the information in the show notes as well. But I feel like I just need to put most of my time and effort into the podcast and into the membership group, our Homestead Forum membership group, for this next year, especially. And as I just don't have enough time to do all of that. And what I found was when I first started this, as a blog. I mean, I was just going to blog, and the blog was doing really well. And then I started kind of podcasting to support the blog and just introduce people to the blog. And what I found out was the podcast became way more popular than the blog. We always rank at the top of iTunes and homesteading podcasts. We have grown unbelievably high in our numbers. I mean, from what I expected. When I first started this, I thought, get a couple thousand people at max listening to this. Well, it's way, way, way over that. I mean, we're doing pretty good on numbers. But the reality is I get more listeners than I do people visits to my podcast, to my website anymore, which is kind of surprising because the website has done fairly well. But the flip side of that is that whatever money I bring in to pay for the podcast hosting and, the media hosting and softwares and things like that, actually it comes from the blog. It's traffic generated through affiliate ads and things like that usually. So, which is why I really came up with the membership program, because I'm not going to focus on the blog. I'm going to focus on the podcast. Well, we have to generate something to support it. I don't want it to ever be something that I'm dumping a lot of money into to do. I enjoy doing it. But it has to pay for itself. I feel like I don't want to do anything that doesn't pay for itself. To me, that's sustainability. That's what sustainability represents. It's like, if something can't maintain and sustain itself, then it probably isn't worth doing. And I feel that way about my garden. I feel that way about animals. I mean, I have to bring in enough from those things to sustain them, to make them stay. I want whatever I do to be sustainable. And the podcast, I feel the same way about. I want it to be sustainable, and it has to pay for itself at the very least, and a little bit of my time. Or it's not that it's not worth doing. It's just that honestly, I can't afford to do it. I don't feel like we do without a lot of things around here. But at the same time, if you did too many things where you weren't getting a return on them, it would start to wear on you, and you wouldn't be able to afford those things. So, it's just one of those things I want to pay for itself, but I also want to focus more on the podcast in 2018. So the blog is going to kind of take a back door. There probably ain't going to be as much stuff to read on the blog, but I still encourage folks to come and look at the show notes, because I'll always have links to things I'm talking about in the show notes. And, you can look at the old episodes and there's just a lot there. And there is a lot of old blog posts. I mean, we've been doing this for about 3 years. So there's a lot of old stuff there to look at. So I still encourage people to come to the blog, and I'm still going to blog occasionally. I mean, there's just going to be things like something will inspire me, and I'll be like, I want to write about this, and I'll write occasionally. But I'm thinking it's going to be like once a month. There's going to be a post. So I just wanted to kind of, hash that out on the podcast a little bit and talk about it. This whole blogging, podcasting journey has kind of been all over the place. I've tried 100 different things. I've tried different formats. I used to do like an item of the week that I'd post a blog post about. There's just been all these things. I used to do a quote of the week. I used to, do recipes all the time, things like that. Those things kind of come and go, and it's like what I feel like doing, and I give it a try for a while, and if it works, it kind of sticks around for a while. If it doesn't work, it goes away pretty quick, and it's just this constant, fluctuation of trying to find what works and what doesn't work. So anyway, podcasting is definitely going to take the front seat for a while, here. So I imagine those of you who listen to the podcast are happy to hear that. But at one time it didn't. It was the blog that was in the front seat. And, I did the podcast when I could. So, we're definitely going to put more focus on the podcast. So I just thought I'd let you know about that. Homestead relevant news this week. I ran across an article in the Chattanooga Times Free Press, and the title of it was "Gateway to a Better Future is the Lure of Sustainable Living." And I thought this was a good article. Reading through it, there's some awesome pictures in this. This lady, Jennifer Walls, she built a home down in Chattanooga, and she's living sustainably. And I thought what was interesting was she had a conversation with her grandmother in this article, and she had built a clubhouse, all this stuff. And it says, and her grandmother had lived a tough life in rural West Virginia before a whirlwind romance whisked her off to the comforts of Orlando, Florida. For her, the idea of living off the land was regression. And I think a lot of people do feel like that. It's like, why would you want to go back to I love it when ads play. Why would you want to go back to the old ways of living when, things are better now, and I think there's a kind of a misunderstanding. It's why I'm really a modern homesteader. Modern homesteading to me is what it's all about, and a lot of people though, it isn't. They want to go into a woods and they want to live off the grid completely, and they want to do away with all of that. But, what I find is they'd say that, but then a lot of them have internet and a cell phone. Okay. The reality is there's a lot of great things, in the world that are modern. You don't have to do everything the old ways. I think we should know how to do those things. And I think we should absolutely appreciate those things. But I think we should combine those things with modern technology and modern advancements and enjoy them, when in a way that, it's less work in a lot of ways when you do it that way. It is definitely more further reaching and even more, sustainable in a lot of ways, I think. There was a reason a lot of that stuff didn't stick around. And most of it was probably because of laziness and just people just wanting to live a different lifestyle. But some of it went away because there are better ways to do things. So I thought that was an interesting take from her grandmother on it. But the article's really good. She's really into reducing and reusing and recycling. Great article. She has livestock. She's raising her own livestock, planting her gardens, living in a cob house. It's a really it's a good article. It's long. It's good. Check it out. I'll have a link to it in the show notes today. Just go to smalltownhomestead.com/73 for today's show notes, episode 73, and check out that article. It's really good. I enjoyed reading it. That's the only one I have for today, but it's a very encouraging one, but, it's a good read. It's just something that, I believe she's right on so many levels in that article. A gateway to a better future is the lure of sustainable living. The title to me says it all. So go check that out. I didn't have a question for the Homestead Front Porch this week, so there wasn't no group question, but I will just encourage you to join our group. There's always great questions in there. It's a closed group, but all you have to do to join is ask. Just answer a couple questions when you ask to join that we ask, and then we'll make you part of this great community. And it is, I'm telling you, I haven't been as active in there the last couple weeks as I'd like to have been because I've been working on so many things. And we've had this really nasty weather come through here. And, listen, folks, my day job, I'm out in that, and it's made my days really long and really hard. And then I come home and I have to do a few things on, as far as I'm still working on the membership site and my website and things like that, plus the chores around here. It's been busy, so I haven't been spending as much time in there lately, mostly weather related, but it's a great group. You never know that I'm not in there because there's just so much activity in there from other members that it's just a great community to be a part of, and I really encourage you to go and be a part of the Homestead Front Porch. Just search Facebook for Homestead Front Porch Facebook group and ask to join. We'll get you right in there. As I take another sip of my coffee, we will get ready for our main topic of discussion. Homesteaders need to know about coccidiosis and why this episode. I told you earlier, Anne-Marie asked this question. I think she goes by Dash. She has a YouTube channel called Bloom Where You're Planted. That's her website as well, I think. And Anne-Marie asks, the parasite coccidiosis has been a huge obstacle to overcome on my homestead. I get a lot of conflicting info on it from my research. I might give up raising rabbits because of it. Chickens have also been affected, and now they are telling me my dog could get it. I would love to have a plan moving forward. I am an urban homesteader, so have very limited space. This parasite might defeat me. Now, since it's been a few weeks now since Dash asked this question, and since then she has done a YouTube video where she battled it. She ended up going to a vet with her animals. She's lost some animals. And I'll tell you, and she talks a little bit about it in one of her YouTube videos. And from what I discovered is in her research, most of what I'll talk about today, she already learned. So this isn't as much for her now as this is for other folks, because I feel like she's got a grip on it now. She knows what she's dealing with. She knows probably as much as I know about it. I've dug in kind of deep a while back, and, so this is for everybody else who maybe hasn't dealt with it or doesn't know anything about it. Or maybe you're just starting to deal with it and you need some answers and you need them now. But it's ugly. It really is. My own experience with coccidiosis is, I first got into rabbits and I didn't know anything about it, and it's funny too, because, I grew up around these things but I just don't remember us ever having to deal with it. But maybe my dad just dealt with that behind the scenes, and I remember we lost animals occasionally, but I don't know what from, and maybe he didn't either. We just had it and didn't know, but we had a few more acres. We weren't urban homesteaders, and that helps, when you can spread your animals out and they're not, it's kind of waste related in a lot of its ways. So, when you can get them spread out a little bit where they're not, around the waste all the time, it helps. But I have a feeling he probably dealt with it kind of behind the scenes, and I could ask him, but I didn't ask him. But I dealt with it right away. I had my rabbits in a colony right off the bat. They were on the ground. And it was a problem, and I had them in a limited space, and I actually got my rabbits in the wintertime. So it wasn't as big a deal right off the bat, but then by the time spring rolled around, we had the wet spring, and I started noticing a problem. I started having sick rabbits, and then I started having a lot of sick rabbits, and I really just didn't know what the problem was. So we started doing some investigation. By that time, I'd already lost some rabbits, started seeing diarrhea, started seeing, just the sick rabbits. Then I started seeing them being paralyzed, and there was just a lot of issues, and I didn't know what is going on here. Well, I started getting into I think the first place I heard about it and figured out what to do about it in a lot of ways was, there's a Facebook group called, Backyard Meat Rabbits, and just a lot of great information in there, a lot of great people. I've actually bought some rabbits from some folks in there. So, I mean, it's just a great group to be a part of. If you're not part of it, it's called Backyard Meat Rabbits on Facebook. It's just a fantastic group. So if you have meat rabbits, you should really be a part of that group, because there's just a ton of knowledge flying around in there. And I haven't even been in there in a while. Cause I guess I'm kind of past a lot of those things, but if you're new to raising rabbits, you should absolutely join that group and be active in there for a while. Anyway, I lost my favorite rabbit, my first rabbit, my pedigree rabbit. And, she was just a great rabbit. She'd give me a couple litters, early on. And I come home one day from work and she's paralyzed. I mean, she's just absolutely paralyzed. And, I put her down. And that was hard for me. I mean, like I said, she was my best breeding rabbit. She was just my favorite rabbit. She was the friendliest rabbit I had. And, you lose animals you really care about. And, I had a lot of, big dreams that, were built around, using her as one of my breeders. And, but I started losing some of the young ones too. And it just became a problem. And which is, it's more likely going to affect the young ones a lot of times. So, it discouraged me a lot. And it actually discouraged me to the point where, after about a year of raising rabbits, I actually gave it up for about a year and a half. I just said, I don't want to deal with this anymore. This is a pain. And then I did a lot of study and research on it, and I learned a few things and thought, you know what? I really missed having rabbits, and, I want that good, healthy meat as part of my homestead. And I also learned that it affects everything. I mean, any animal, certain kinds, they're species specific, but it can affect any animal. So you can't get away from it just because you're not raising rabbits. If you're raising chickens, you're probably going to have to deal with it. It can affect goats. It can affect cattle. I mean, it really has no limits. So I decided I wanted to try to do better with the rabbits and just do it in a way that might limit the problem with coccidiosis. So we tackled that. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I've done or things you can do to help out with that as we go along. So first, let's just jump into what is coccidiosis. I've used the word 100 times here, and we haven't even talked about what it is yet. Just the book definition is it's an infection caused by coccidia, which are a microscopic spore-forming single-celled parasite. These parasites must live and reproduce within an animal cell. Coccidian parasites infect the intestinal tract of animals. Okay, well, like I said, book definition, it is something that it's in their intestinal tract, so naturally it's going to be transmitted through the stool of the animal. But that parasite will get into the intestinal tract and affect, all of your animals. It really will. So in other words, if you're going to treat one, you're going to end up treating them all. So, what can get coccidiosis? Well, I didn't mention that earlier, but there are many different species of coccidia, and they can infect different animals. But there is one strand in particular that can infect all mammals, some birds, some fish, some reptiles, and some amphibians. Yes, even people. That means humans can get that strand. And now, generally, that strand that I'm talking about comes from cats. It can only reproduce in the digestive tract of cats. So humans generally become infected by eating undercooked meat, but they can also contract it when they're handling cat waste. So it's something you have to be aware of if you have cats, especially that one. The others are pretty much species specific, so you're not going to have to worry about those as bad as far as spreading. But if you have cats and a cat gets affected with it, you probably want to treat all your animals and go see a doctor yourself, perhaps, if you have any of the symptoms. Just as a side note, everything I'm talking about today, it's just come from research. I am not a vet. I'm not a doctor. That's kind of a disclaimer, Don't take anything that I'm saying and say, well, I'm going to base all my decisions on that. If you have questions, don't take my word for it. Go see a vet, and if it affects you, definitely go see a doctor. I can't diagnose anything from here, and even if I was there, I wouldn't, because I could help you, I could give you some ideas, but I'll still point you towards a vet and a doctor for your own needs, because I don't take those chances, If not losing an animal is important to you, you need to take an animal to a vet. I don't generally use veterinarians because I accept some loss on my homestead. I deal with things as best I can. Now, if it's my pet, that's different. And like I said, coccidiosis some strands of coccidiosis can affect your pets, your dogs, your cats. So, if you've got something like that going around and it started with a cat, perhaps, you might want to treat everything or take your pets to a vet. So, that's what can get it. I don't mean to scare you with that, because that isn't commonly what happens. I mean, generally you see it in your chickens or you see it in your rabbits. That's not going to affect your other animals. Probably. Unless it originated with a cat. I mean, if it's that species of coccidia, then yes, it could. That's why it's just such a gamble. That's why it's not a pleasant topic to talk about. The one that affects your rabbits probably isn't going to affect your chickens, and vice versa. So it generally isn't going to wipe out all your livestock, but it can wipe out one kind of your livestock for sure if it goes untreated and uncared for. How do you know if your animal has coccidiosis? Well, coccidia, the infection, can cause fever, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle pain, nervous system effects, and changes to behavior, and may lead to death. And I told you about the nervous system effects, like my rabbit was paralyzed. And they get kind of stiff, and it's very strange. It's a very weird thing to see. The diarrhea is very common. I mean, you will see the pasty butt on your animals, and it's just a sign that you could have coccidiosis affecting your whatever you have, rabbits or chickens. And that's when it's time to deal with it for sure. One thing you can do also, if you have an animal die from it, is you can open them up and examine the liver, because it affects the liver. You will see these white or even yellowish spots on the liver, which when my first rabbit died from it, I actually did that. I heard that in the Backyard Meat Rabbits group. I opened up my rabbit and I pulled out the liver and looked, and sure enough, it had the coccidiosis. Now, everything I've read says that, I mean, I wouldn't eat an animal that died from it, but if I was processing my rabbits and I seen it on some of my rabbits, but they didn't really show any symptoms of it, but I could see it on their liver, you can still eat the rabbit. You can't eat the liver. Don't eat the liver. But everything I've read says you can still eat the rabbit. Okay. So I wouldn't personally be afraid of that, eating the meat. You don't want to eat the liver or feed that liver to your other animals though, because it does have that in it. You're naturally cooking that animal is going to get rid of the parasite. I don't think, a lot of people raise rabbits to feed it, the raw meat to dogs. And I don't think I would do that with a rabbit that had coccidiosis. I haven't read anything on that, but I don't think I would do that because, again, you can take chances. You can do things. You can make your own decisions. I don't think I would do that, but I don't feed my dog raw meat either. A lot of people do raise rabbits just so they can put their dogs on a raw meat diet. So I don't know. You'll want to do your own research on that or talk to a vet about that. I'm sure the vet will play the safe way out and say, yeah, don't do that. But that's how you kind of know if your animal has it. How is it transmitted? Well, infected animals spread spores in their stool. And when other animals pass over the location where the feces are deposited, they pick up those spores, and then they ingest them when they're grooming themselves or whatever. And then the spores may also be ingested by mice. And when other animals eat the mice, like chickens, the mouse, when any other animal eats that mouse, it'll become infected. So it gets that spores into its digestive tract, in other words. Now it's important to know kind of how it's transmitted, because that will help you to prevent it. How do we treat it conventionally? And why I'm going to talk about conventionally and like a more natural way to treat it is because, well, some of us got into this, raising our animals, because, we're trying to get away from conventional methods of homesteading or farming, in which they just drug everything up, right? And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you just need to go get a medicine and treat your animals. And so you can treat for coccidiosis conventionally. Coccidiosis is most commonly treated with the administration of coccidiostats. It's a group of medications that stop coccidia from reproducing in dogs, in cats, and other animals. The most commonly administered coccidiostat is sulfa-based antibiotics. Once reproduction stops of the coccidia, the animal can usually recover on its own. And it's a process that can take a few weeks, and it depends on the severity of the infection and the strength of the animal's immune system. Now, that statement right there, the animal's immune system, is very important, because why does one animal, you can have a couple animals in the same place, one gets it, one doesn't, or the chances are they both have it, but the one has no symptoms, and it will defeat it on its own because it has a stronger immune system. It's why you generally see younger animals, your young rabbits, your young birds getting this or showing the symptoms of it and even dying from it. It's because they have a weaker immune system. Generally, an older animal with a good, strong, healthy older animal will not have any symptoms of it. It can pass right through them. They can get rid of it. They can overcome it, and they'll never have any problems with it. It happens. I mean, not all of my animals died from it. Okay, some did, some didn't. I haven't lost one to it. I lost one here recently, and checked it out. It had it. I treated the others not conventionally, naturally, which I'll talk about here in a minute, and I haven't had any more problem with it for several months. So, the natural treatments work as well. But conventionally, you can run down to your TSC or your local farm store, and, one medicine that I tried, this was a long time ago, and I just treat them naturally unless it gets serious, then I start going conventional. Cord, I think is the name of it. There's some others, and it's a mixture. It's something you mix in. It's a powder you mix in with water. They drink the water. It kills the parasite, stops it from reproducing, and then they can get better. Unless they're too far gone, and in which case it's just they don't recover. But when you treat one of your animals, if you have other animals in there, you should treat them because there's a good chance they're getting it or they have it. If you think it came from a cat, if there's a chance of that, originated with a cat, you should treat all your other pets. You should treat your dogs. You should treat your other cats. Treat all your livestock because there's a good chance that's going to go around, and that's the one that even humans can get. So if you start showing any symptoms, you might want to check with a doctor. So that's serious. I don't know how common that is. That's not something we dealt with here, but from my research, that one can be kind of dangerous, especially for young children and people with weaker immune systems. Let's talk about treating it naturally. Okay. It's really pretty straightforward on the conventional way of treating. Like I said, you go get the medicine, you put it in their water, you treat them for however long the recommended time is to treat them, and it's over. You don't have to worry about it. And maybe it's a good idea in the springtime. If you're going to treat naturally or conventionally, maybe it's a good idea to do that in the spring, when it's most common, the parasite's most common, or depending on where you're at, if you're like in a really warm climate, it could happen anytime. Here, it's a springtime thing generally because it's when we have a lot of moisture and parasites it's their breeding ground, it's just when they're out and about. It's a problem, in those times. You could just automatically treat your livestock for it just in case it's out there. Some people do that. Now, me personally, I'm kind of funny about it. Like I said, I got into this for health reasons. I didn't want to eat a bunch of treated meat. So if I was going to do it, I wouldn't butcher for a while. I wouldn't process any of those animals for a while after I treated them. I just don't want that. I don't know that would affect the meat. I never read anything that said it affects the meat in any way. But I'm just funny about those things, I would want to give it time to get out of their system, and I'd probably wait a couple months, personally. But you do your own research on that. You take your own chances. I'm never going to tell somebody you should do this or shouldn't do this. These are my personal preferences, and I'm just sharing those with you on the podcast. So yeah, I'd wait a while after I treated them. Well, how about treating them naturally, which is what I do? Apple cider vinegar is one way to treat naturally. Recommended dosage is one tablespoon per 32 ounce water bottle. That's sufficient, but you can add as much as you want as long as your animals will continue to drink. I give them a little bit more. They don't seem to mind it. I'll probably double that. A couple tablespoons per 32 ounce bottle. Cause I want to get as much in them as I can. They don't seem to mind drinking the water with the apple cider vinegar in it. So I give it to them. This does a few things. It helps build up the digestive tract. It helps with their immune system, makes them stronger rabbits. They digest their food better because of it. They just do better with it. And, I say I do it all the time, and I'd like to. I don't. I get the Bragg's apple cider vinegar. I do it most of the time. I just naturally just give it to them. I put it in their water all the time. There's times I don't though. I might go a few weeks where I don't do it at all. I don't know why. I just get in the habit and I'm just in a hurry and I just put water in there and roll because sometimes I forget to take the vinegar out and put it in their bottles. But, you can just treat them all the time with that. You can just keep that in their water all the time. They'll drink it. It'll help them. They'll be better in a lot of ways because of it. It's a good habit to use, and it's a natural, it naturally helps prevent coccidiosis. I read that blackberry leaves Fresh or dried is a powerful anti-diarrhea herb. I do give my rabbits some blackberry leaves in the summertime, but I don't really give it to them because of this, but it says it helps. In many cases, it helps with their stools, prevents diarrhea. So it's something that, that's one of the things that is probably the thing. If there's a reason you're going to lose your animal, it's probably because of diarrhea. So if blackberry leaves help with that, it can help save your animal. So a regular diet of a few blackberry leaves could be real beneficial to your animals. The thing that's probably the most important in treating naturally is a clean environment. Clean your cages, your feeders, your water bowls, with a slight bleach solution or vinegar solution to kill any trace of the parasite in their living environment. And this will help prevent the spread. If your animals are in a colony or on the ground, that's very hard to do. You really can't do that. That's why when we talk here in a few minutes about how to prevent it, cages are going to be the best way to prevent it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But they need a very clean environment. If you have it, just treating the animal is not enough. You have to treat their living quarters, their feeders, their water bottles, all that. You have to treat everything. And this is going to help keep it from spreading. So it's just a process you're going to have to go through if you get it. If you had a rabbit that had it, you treat the others. You get them all out there, you get some bleach solution in water, a little bit of bleach or some vinegar and a little bit of water, and you get in there and you scrub those cages and you scrub those feeders, you scrub them water bottles because that parasite's in there. And wherever their waste has landed and, their butts rub up against everything. So you get in there and clean stuff up because, it's going to help prevent it. It's going to help treat it. Now how to prevent it? Honestly, I did a whole episode on raising rabbits in colonies. I loved raising them in colonies, on the ground, living like rabbits, having a great life. But the reality is, raising rabbits separated in clean wire cages is the best way to prevent it. Wire cages are designed to let their waste fall through the floor. And, a lot of people worry that the wire bottoms hurt their feet, but if the wire's close enough together, it doesn't bother them. The 1/2-inch spaced hardware cloth wire is ideal for cage bottoms. It's what I use. Their little, Cocoa Puffs fall right through and, they just don't have an issue. So, put them on wire, and there's people who would probably send me hate mail for that, but my rabbits don't mind it. And you can put a little pad in there that they can stand on that gives them a break from the wire occasionally. But, they just don't seem to care. I have boxes in there for them. They can jump in and get a break in their little nesting boxes. And I just keep them in there. They're little wooden nesting boxes and I keep them in there and I clean them occasionally and they'll jump in there if they need a break from the wire and they'll lay in there. They hardly are ever in there. They usually are sitting on the wire and it doesn't bother them. Now, don't use something like chicken wire for your cage bottoms. That will hurt their feet. That will cut their feet. It will damage their feet. Be smart about it. Use the smallest spaced hardware cloth wire you can find that their waste will go through, which is the 1/2-inch spaced hardware cloth. Don't go any bigger because yes, it could hurt their feet. If you do have them on the ground, put them in a rabbit tractor, and move it regularly to avoid, waste from other animals or their own waste. If you're dead set against putting your rabbits in cages, then you can do the mobile rabbit tractor. This will give your rabbits fresh grass, and you can move them daily, and you can limit their exposure to parasites. But, as a Dash pointed out, is that she's on an urban homestead. She's limited in space. This is difficult, and it is for me as well. So your rabbits are probably going to stay in the same area all the time, which in that case, you're going to have to get them up off the ground. If you have a rabbit tractor, you could occasionally put them in and put them on the ground and keep it moved. That's great. Your rabbits are going to love that, but you're going to have to move it regularly. And I wouldn't put two different, put a rabbit in there and then put another rabbit in there in the same area. Move that thing before you put the other rabbit in there. Take its turn on the grass. You just got to be smart about it. Anytime you're exposing them to the waste of the other animal, you're exposing them to possible coccidiosis. So, just be smart about that. The other thing is what I've already said, avoid permanent rabbit colony setups. It is a pleasant existence for a rabbit having a permanent home with lots of space to hop around and spend their days, playing with their fellow rabbits and, but this is a breeding ground for coccidia parasites and it will more than likely make raising rabbits a nightmare. And in my opinion, this option only works if you're going to treat all your rabbits with conventional medicines. I would say yearly. You know, if you're going to just say, oh, I'm just going to leave, I'm going to raise them that way, and these are pet rabbits. You know, if you're raising them for pets and you're selling them as pets and you're doing that kind of thing, just treat them. Just treat them once a year for it. And, you know, leave them out there. I guess. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of luck with that. It was it was a disaster, and it is so discouraging that I gave up raising rabbits for a while. But, you know, I was raising mine for meat. So if you're raising them for pet stock, maybe that's a way to go, you know, and there, no doubt about it, they are happier. I mean, my rabbits in cages aren't near as happy as when they're hopping around the ground with other rabbits and playing and climbing and jumping over stuff and digging holes, and they love it. They do. But the reality is it's way more difficult to raise them that way. Another thing you can do is boost their immune system with a good, healthy diet. Just like any living thing, a good diet makes for a stronger immune system, which can help ward off any infection. You know, giving your rabbits a balanced diet will make them stronger, healthier, and happier. And what I mean by that is so many people just throw the bag feed in their little rabbit feeders, and that's all they ever give them. You know, go out and do some foraging for your rabbits. Get them a variety of things. Get them some dandelion leaves. Get them, you know, some blackberry leaves. Get them some mulberry leaves. Get them some grass. Put in their cages. You know, give them a variety. In the wintertime, I give them some fodder. I give them, you know, I grow fodder in the house, and some sprouts, and I take out there and give them that, just to give them some more green and some more variety. Give them some, you know, give them lots of hay to eat, and you know, give them, and of course, I do feed mine with conventional feed, but I give them such a variety of other stuff too. It's just this constant, you know, very diverse diet that really helps them build up a good, strong immune system and keeps them healthier. And I recommend that. I really do. I think it's just a good thing to do. Keep your rabbits on a very balanced diet. Giving them lots of options, lots of stuff. They need lots of things. They're just like us in a lot of ways. We can't eat the same thing every day. You know, it's not going to make us the healthiest we can be. We need variety in our diet. Okay. So think of that for your animals as well. Give them a variety. It'll make them much healthier, much happier, and a stronger immune system. So those are some things you can do to help prevent it. You know, ultimately, death is a reality on the homestead. You're going to lose animals. It's not fun. But if you're going to do it, you're going to deal with it. No doubt about it. And I would just say, if it's got you discouraged, just relax, accept it as part of what it is, part of homesteading. Do your best to overcome it, accept the challenge, and do all the things you can do, and go on about life. It's worth the struggle. It really is, but it is a struggle. And I would encourage you to keep doing it, keep trying, make every option, you know, take advantage of every option there is to overcome it. But don't be overly discouraged with yourself if you're doing your best. But it is a lot of work, and it is a lot to deal with, and it's not easy. But that's part of homesteading. It's not all puppies and rainbows, you know. There's things you have to deal with sometimes. And that's one of the ugly things. It really is. It's like dealing with, you know, pests in our gardens and things. I mean, these are just realities of homesteading. These are things you have to do. And it's not all fun, you know, but, it's worth it. I really do think it's worth it. So, there you have it. Coccidiosis in a nutshell. How to deal with it, how to prevent it, what it is. Hope you don't ever have to deal with it. My guess is you will if you have small livestock. And now you know a few ways to help out and overcome it. So let's just jump on and talk about today's recommendation. What I'm going to recommend today, I don't own. But I know somebody that has one, and I've watched it in use, and I go, ooh, I need to get one of those. So it's kind of cool. It's called the Hopper Popper Rabbit Dispatch Tool. And if you raise rabbits for meat, and this doesn't sound pleasant for some people who don't, and I understand, but the reality is if you're going to have to raise rabbits for meat, you're going to have to dispatch them to process them. And this little tool is pretty cool. It's for you, basically you put their head in it and you pull their legs kind of back and hard, and it dislocates their spinal cord. It kills them instantly. It's a very humane, quick way to dispatch a rabbit. You can use what's called the broomstick method. It works like that, where you put a broomstick across the back of their neck and you pull their legs. And sounds gruesome to people. And it is. It's something you got to do though if you're going to raise rabbits for meat, right? You have to process them. I use a you can shoot your rabbits in the head. Okay. But if you're going to keep the pelts or just anything, it's very messy. You're going to do a lot more cleaning up because blood's going to run out and it's going to be messy and it does the trick, but it's just a messier process. This hopper popper is very clean, very quick. The rabbits don't suffer. And you know what? My whole philosophy on raising animals is you give them the absolute best life you can give them. You treat them with lots of respect. You take care of them. You give them the best life they can have. And then they have a couple seconds of misery at the very end. Okay. It's very quick. And then you process and you do what you have to do. You do the ugly business of raising livestock, but you make it as quick and as pleasant as possible. And the hopper popper does that. It's a really cool little tool. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for you. You can go to their website. I have no affiliation with them. I just think it's a pretty cool tool. I've seen it used. I'll probably get one at some point. You can see YouTube videos of them being used, and they do work really, really well and really, really convenient. And, get one. I think they're, a little costly for what they are, maybe. I don't know. I know everybody needs to make a profit on what they're doing, but you can get them in like stainless steel so they don't rust on you and stuff like that. But if you want to see how one works, there's YouTube videos on them. I won't link to a YouTube video, but I'll just link to the Hopper Popper website and you can check that out. It's smalltownhomestead.com/73. So there you have it, folks. Coccidiosis in a nutshell. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank all of you who support this show through PayPal or affiliate links or, even leaving iTunes reviews. We've had several iTunes rankings and reviews lately. I really enjoy those. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And guys, I'm getting really excited about our launch of our membership sites coming up. Right now I've got it set for February 1st as the launch date. Looks like that's going to happen. I've been pounding away putting more stuff in there for you. If you want more of it, there's going to be more to listen to in there and watch and be part of. And guys, I'm getting some great discounts for you for some products too in there. So it's going to be worth it. It's going to be a very cheap membership to be part of, and it's going to help support this podcast, and you're going to get lots of cool stuff as well. So, hope you'll just consider that, but I'll let you know as soon as that's open for joining, and it should be February 1st, but we'll be talking a lot more about that in the next couple episodes. And until then, happy homesteading and God bless.
Thanks for listening. To see the show notes for this podcast or listen to other podcast episodes, go to smalltownhomestead.com. There you can also read our blog, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and take advantage of the many resources we make available to help you along in your homesteading journey. Please share this podcast and help us to carry out our mission of helping others to homestead today for a better tomorrow.